from a preparatory standpoint, I know what it's done for our players. Like, I'm watching our players succeed in college. I'm watching them step into day one and be all SEC or Big 12 freshman of the year. Like, they're ready. They're much more ready. And that's not us beating our chest. I'm saying, like, the environment we're actually throwing our kids into, we're throwing them in this crucible and saying, you're going to come out the other side and you're going to be tough.
Welcome to the Car Ride Home podcast. I'm joined again by Scott Smith, the head coach of the Texas Bombers, 18 under, the most recent national champion Texas Bombers of the 18U, which is what we're going to dedicate the podcast to. I'm calling this our special National Champions edition, where I want to dive deeper into what I'm going to call your historic run through the AFCS, because there's so many storylines and very cool. But Scott, welcome back. The Car Ride Home.
Thanks. That's cool to be here. Sounds cool. I like the sound. That has a cool ring to it. National champion, finally. So it's cool to be here. Thanks.
That trophy looks really nice behind you too.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's big. Someone had to bring it home. We couldn't get it on a plane. We had to sit it on with a parent.
It might be crazy. One of my favorite things is like, here you go. Now, good luck getting it home.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I would love to have to figure out how to get that home again. I promise you.
One thing we are going to keep consistent is we're going to set the stage in the car, but let's go national champion style here. So after you win, you got that drive back from Kokomo. What music are you listening to?
It was really pretty laid back, to be honest with you. Like we'd come down off such a high. I really feel like it was probably some Randy Rogers, some Wade Bowen. I think we just put on the normal playlist. It felt pretty normal. Like, once you get in the truck again, like it's kind of like, hey, back to normal, you know? So we had the normal music, the normal Texas country stuff. It was chill. It was a good little 30-minute ride back, and then we had a little fun after that. It was fun.
Well, that's food is a big part of the car ride home. So what was the celebration? Where were we eating?
Well, we had to celebrate in the airport, right? So it was in the airport. So airport food, right? And I feel like it was wings. In fact, it was. I absolutely remember it was wings. And it was Nate and I, my assistant coach, because he and I were going to San Antonio. So everybody was going different directions. And so Nate and I sit and we may have drank an adult beverage or two and had wings, and it was airport food because it was the end of the it was our last chance to get home too, by the way. Yeah.
That's why I wanted to do it. Just that real life, this is travel ball. And what after you win a national championship on the road.
Yes. No, it was cool. We enjoyed that process. It was a lot of scrambling at the end, trying to get people to the airport in time, and because everybody was cutting it close. And so it was good. It was good.
What do you remember about that? Because I actually saw you guys, right, headed home after that win, and you're with a couple of your coaches. What's your memory of that moment and sharing that with your coaches?
You know, I think for me, I remember talking with them afterwards, and there's a really cool, and I don't know if you're a Friday Night Lights fan, right, of the movie. And I don't know if you remember the part in the movie where Winchell and the coach are driving in the car to go do the coin flip to get into the playoffs, right? And Winchell was telling them about feeling cursed and not feeling like they can win and all these different things, right? And the coach said, you know, there's not a whole lot of difference between winning and losing. It's just how people perceive you afterwards. And that has always stuck with me. It's easy to say that once you win it a little bit, but, you know, I have two smaller trophies back here too, right? Like we had gotten really close. And so I was more, once we were just hanging there in a parking lot, really packing things up, I think we were all just proud, right? We were just proud of our kids. We had some adversity through that process. I'm sure we'll chat about that. We played about as many games as a team could play to win it. And so I was just proud of them. I think we were just proud. I think proud is the only word I just keep wanting to reference back to was that I knew what we had accomplished was a big deal, but I was more proud than anything else.
And we definitely will dive deep into. I truly think a historic run, and we'll talk about those 8 elimination games that you guys had to face.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting here, we're almost a month out. Um, and especially for you, Scott, and I know you, and I know with what you've built with your program and different events, and the different championship runs that you guys have had. But you're sitting here almost a month out, just reflecting back. How are you feeling? What are your thoughts now and looking back and being able to look behind you as an 18 under national champion?
What's crazy, and I was telling this to my wife. Irma and I were talking the other day about it because she was laughing that I was immersed back in softball so much, with tryouts and building teams and just everything that goes with that. But like at the end of the day, you put so much effort into getting that done. A lot of times and I don't know if other coaches felt this way, but for so many times going to the national championships, there was a stretch in there when we were trying to get to maybe a level where I felt like we could compete at the national championship. I know there are coaches out there that are pushing that grind, and there was a stretch in there where all it was about winning. Like, hey, let's just win enough where people will appreciate us. Let's just win enough so that kids will want to play for us. Let's just win enough so that people around the country will go, man, they're pretty good, right? There was that stretch, right? Then there was the stretch where we got into the pocket where I felt like, I think we could make a run. Like this could be really something. Hey, we do really well and the ball bounces our way, all those things. I think we could be special in this. But I didn't enjoy that process because what I was trying to do was not fall back in to the maybe we're good enough phase. And so it was almost like going to nationals and not hoping not to mess up, right? Almost like where people would appreciate, no, they did really good. You guys are awesome. We'll be at your tryouts. We want to play. We still want to play for you guys. Like there's just like this weight that just like this, almost like a weighted vest that you walked around with at nationals, not thinking about winning the national championship, but thinking about not messing it up. And so honestly, it was as if somebody reached up and pulled that vest off of my shoulders when we won. I felt it. Like I literally sat there when we won and they ran on the field. I just sat there for a second because I remember like, dude, I think we finally did this. Like it almost didn't register with me that we'd finally won. I mean, we were way ahead late in the game. So I'd already come to grips with like, we're going to have to really mess this up if we're not going to win today. So I'd already kind of figured that piece out, but there was still that moment where like, I felt like, okay, now you can just go try to do it again. You don't have to do all the other stuff. So I know other coaches are weaving themselves through, I'm sure maybe they don't feel that way. I felt that way. It was like, it's just like these evolution of getting to that point. And I don't know, like I said this to Mike and I talked, a couple of people, I just talking to a couple of people about it. I don't think I was a good enough coach to win the other ones, to be honest with you. I think I was a lot better coach in this one than those other 3 or 4 or 5. We won a 16U national championship before. It wasn't the first one that I'd been part of, but this 18U thing is hard. It's a really difficult task. So I felt like I was relieved more than anything else.
I want to dive deeper into that, Scott, because listen, this is I think you should be very proud of those other 2 trophies, right, that are beside it, national finishes, especially because of the grind at 18 under. So getting to that national championship, like I get chills. That's a huge deal. But what do you think as a coach that you've learned? And we'll talk about the team for sure later, but like as a coach, dive deeper into that statement you just made. What was different about this year, and what do you think you learned from the previous 2 runs?
I approached this one. We don't have the big trophy without the other 2 little ones. Like I can just tell you that. Like it would have been luck. Looking back on it, we would have been lucky to win one with the other ones because we have really talented softball teams on those two. And so I almost have to I do wear the burden of thinking maybe I wasn't as talented a coach as I needed to be to help us win those other ones. I was better this time than those times. And where I was better, and I know it, and I was consciously tried to be this way. I made some tactical adjustments in the way I approached this national championship, because I was just so happy to be in the game this time, to be honest with you, because we, like you said, there were so many other times we just could have got knocked out. People had a couple times and they had a couple chances to knock us out, and we just found our way into the game. So the other ones, I think I made too big a deal about being in the national championship series. Like, hey guys, we got to win this. This is a big deal. It's a national championship, right? And I think I overhyped the process. So then early in those games, like you remember the one in Indianapolis last time, we gave up 7 in the first, to Mike. We lost 9-8 in the first game. Like, we battled back. And I think we gassed ourselves in that game. I probably should have been a better coach and slowed down. We're going to lose game 1. Just don't try to win game 1. Like, there was mistakes I made, I think, as a coach, and I'm disappointed in myself. But this time, literally, our kids will tell you, like, before the games, I was just like, hey, let's just play like we're in Sugarland, right? If we win this, it's going to be awesome. If we don't, then we don't. But guess what? Nobody's going to play deeper into the year than we are. Us and Marty are going to play the longest in this tournament than anybody, and let's just enjoy it. This is going to be the last time you guys get to really enjoy being together like this. What do you say we just go out and play? And that was a much different approach than I did the time before. Like, I think I overhyped it and was, I don't say emotional, but I was too fired up to be in the game, where this time I was like, I'm not making that mistake. And so I was conscious about that a little bit. And then when we got to to Sunday, it really was like, hey, we're gold. Like, we're good. Like, you guys haven't given up a run in, like, I don't know the last time you gave up a run. Why do you say we just keep going? Let's finish it. And so it was really, really more of a laid back approach. I think I learned something about that in those moments.
I'm going to come back to some of those big games too, but we both know that a championship starts, 9 months prior or however prior. And we live in a world too, where you're not just trying to win national championships, but you're developing players, you're preparing players for college. You're trying to get these kids exposure. How did your process change the 9 months? Like, go back through last fall, the beginning of the summer. Was that different for your team, for your personal coaching approach? Did anything change there leading up to the national championship?
Yeah, I'll tell you. And I think maybe you saw us in the fall out in Florida. Like, I think we went 2-3 out there. Like, I was really concerned, to be honest with you. We weren't playing very well most of the fall. We finally figured it out at the end of the fall, which was now looking back on it, it was really because we had our TFL championship as the last event that we have of the fall. And we lost 10 games in the fall. Like, we lost 5 games the whole year, the year before, right? And I think 4 games the year before that, right? And 2 of those were in the national championship game. So, like, we had really good softball teams. We lost 10 games this last fall. And so that was twice what I had lost in the whole season. So we were literally like, man, are we going to be good enough? Like, this is, like, we've got to figure some things out. And we were doing a lot of things that good softball teams don't do, like leaving runners in scoring position, not moving runners when you had a chance, free passes, hit by pitches, pass ball, like all the things that you don't do if you're going to win, right? And we were doing every one of them. And so, like, I had to legitimately step back and go, hey, we're really young. We only started 3 seniors on our team. That's in the national championship. Like, we really only had 3 seniors start all year position wise. We had some senior pitchers, but positionally, we only had 3 seniors. And then I also started my middle infield were both sophomores, right? Like, so that was unusual for me. Usually I'm a little older team. And so I was chalking it up to that. And so that evolution was really cool, because we figured it out in the last tournament of the fall, where we just rolled the TFL championship. Like, we played the way you would expect us to play, and we were dominant. I think we gave up 1 or 2 runs the whole tournament, and we scored runs, the way we were accustomed to scoring runs, and we won. But then you go right on a break, and you have to wait all high school season.
Yep.
And so then you're like, man, I just hope we can come back and pull this off. And I didn't know what we would be like. I really didn't. I just thought we would have a chance. And that evolution, we played a bunch of kids early. We were playing a lot of players in the beginning of the summer. And then when we got to Patriot games, and we were without two of our really better players, Townsend Thomas, who ended up being the Alliance most valuable player, and Elsa Morrison, who were both on the Team USA 18U team. We didn't have them at the Patriot games. So I had to go back to playing some of my younger non-starters, if you want to call them that. They're great players. And we balled at the Patriot games. And we got to the championship game and ended up losing in the championship game without two of our better players. That's when I literally like, we might be figuring this thing out. We could be good. And we were really pitching it well. So we just went through the rest of Colorado. We ended up playing at IDT at Boulder and doing pretty well. We lost to Mike and them in a really tough game, 4-3. And that was the moment. That moment there is when I felt like, okay, if we can play Mike and those guys to a 4-3 game at this point in the year, it was very clear they were playing some of their starters. We were playing our starters. It wasn't a scenario where he wasn't playing all his players or I wasn't either. I was still just getting the USA players back, and we played them to a 4-3 game. I thought then, like, okay, let's just not mess this up. And then I made a tactical decision not to play between. Last year I played prior to Alliance, and I felt like we ran out of gas. Like we were just beat down. And so I took some time off with them, and I was worried about them not having at-bats. And it showed up early in Alliance where we stubbed our toe. And I think we stubbed our toe every time. We did. We lost every game one of every part of the double elimination. So you could not play more games than we played. But I think once we started, I think it actually helped us, believe it or not. It's a crazy thing to think. Losing games actually helped us because it forced us to get more at bats. Now, it made us vulnerable to getting beat and sent home. Like 8 times we could have got sent home somewhere in there. But the extra at bats started to put us back on time with our swings. And so it was cool. Yeah, like I just think it was a true evolution of getting to that place. It wasn't like we were really good and we just went through and just beat everybody. That's not what this team was. That's not what this team was at all.
Which is a big statement, right, of a championship team, and you have to face adversity. So with that, let's talk about 8 elimination games. You were almost to the max because you won the National Championship Series in 2 games. So we'll give you that one. But with the way that our tournament goes, you guys cruise through, you go 2-0 in regionals. You drop your first game to the Wisconsin Lightning in super regionals. So now we've
Hey, hold on. We need to make sure we acknowledge the Wisconsin Lightning. Okay.
That's what I was going to ask, right? Because that's what's awesome. That's a team that earned their way to top 32, and you guys get faced with them. I'm curious. I watched the scores of that game, and I think they went up, and then you guys start coming back. But what did that teach you about your team after that loss?
Oh, well, we play them, and they hit a 2-run home run in the first inning. So it was really like literally getting punched in the mouth. And we didn't know anything about them. We were trying to watch film the night before. Like we couldn't find anything. Like we didn't know. I was calling coaches, hey, can you tell me about this team? We were really working hard. It wasn't like we overlooked them. Like we sincerely took them as serious as you're supposed to take a team like that in that part of the tournament. And they were so talented. Like they were so good. And I didn't know a thing about them. I knew about him when we got done. When I walked across the field and shook his hand after we got beat, I knew about him then. And but I just would be really making a mistake if I didn't acknowledge how talented that team was and those kids from Wisconsin and how hard they fought. He legit said it. He goes, "We'll see you. We'll see you later in the tournament, I'm sure." And I was hoping that I was going to be able to say yes to that. I didn't know. Like we were still a young team. Like we did all the things that young teams do, lose games that you're maybe not supposed to lose or those kind of things. So, but yeah, like that was a big eye opener to us because we kind of rolled through the regional part pretty easily. And then you just get popped. And so how we responded was how I hoped we would respond, but I truly didn't know. I mean, I'd be lying if I said, I knew we were going to bounce back. I didn't know that. Honestly, I thought we could go out there and do the same thing the very next game. But we had a chance to go home that day. That day, we had to play again twice. We had to play 2 more times just to get to the next day. So I don't know, what is that, Wednesday? Is that Wednesday that happens?
Yep.
Yeah, we could have went home on Wednesday, right? Like that's how close we were to getting, changing our flights. Yeah, that tells you how vulnerable that difference between going home on Wednesday and winning a national championship is.
Well, then you do come back, and then you've got to double dip the Batbusters Black team, Katie Stiff's team, and then you go into the Elite Eight and drop game one of the Elite. What was that
Again.
So
we lost to Epic.
What are the emotions? Like, okay, we came back already through super regionals. Now we lose game one again of the Elite Eight. What was that conversation with the team?
Yeah, it was really the standard cliche stuff. Well, we've been here before, which we absolutely had. The scary part I thought for us was who we were going to have to beat with a loss, in our back pocket. It's a whole lot different when you get to face those teams, those really talented teams, and you got a little cover because you're in the winner's side of it, and you can, if you lose a tough game or whatever that might be. But I looked up and saw, okay, hey, we're going to have to beat, the Aces and the Iowa Premier and all these guys just to get to where we want to get. I was concerned at that point of trying to figure out how to get to that. You start thinking, because you're seniors, you literally start thinking about what you're going to tell them. And I hate admitting that, but it's real. Like, because you care about them, and you're 7 innings away from not getting to ever coach those kids again. Like that, that's always in your head, and you're trying to be respectful of the fact that they've been with you, some of them, since they've been 10 years old or whatever. So you're scared. Like that's really the right word to use. You're really scared this could be where you get knocked out. But those kids, we just went about it the same way. Like you saw, you were part of one of their pregame huddles where they get to know each other and they have the question of the day. We just did the question of the day, went and played again. Like that's just really what we did. In fact, I think you came in, we're in that one right after we got beat. Honestly, I think that was when I called you over.
What do you think? Do you think there was a certain player on your team? Do you think it was a group effort? Like, how would you define your core group of players because I think that part's important, right? Like a lot of times in the day, like to not get caught up in that loss, to, hey, bounce back, like next one. Who did that come from with your team?
Really, it was a group effort, to be honest with you. This was as close a group as I've ever had the privilege of coaching. They always had a team dinner, no matter what tournament we were at, and they organized it. They always did Bible study, and not every player on our team did Bible study, but there was always Bible study that happened at one of their houses or hotels or whatever they might be. That it was all a really kind of a group effort. And we're fortunate because so many of them had played together for so long. Like from the time they were 10, 11, 12 years old, they'd all been Bombers and kind of come through our system. And so I think the ones that maybe were new to it, like Townsend, this was her first year with us. I think because she's such a quality individual and she's such a faith-based kid, she jumped right into that with them. Like she loved that about them. And so that stuff started to kind of connect itself. It played a huge role in why we were successful and why there was no panic in us. And I will say this, those kids never panicked. Like a lot of kids will panic. They realize, oh, this is it. Oh, we could be done. And then that gets in the way of being successful. And they just didn't. They just kind of stayed pretty steady. And that's why when we got to the championship, I was like, okay, I'm not changing anything. There was the indoor cages that we could go hit in. No, we're going to go to that back softball field and hit on bow nets. Like I tried to keep it as similar as what we had done the entire tournament. And I think that was helpful for them, and they just stayed pretty chill.
I'm continuing to go through your run because this is what I love, being there and watching these moments. The Iowa Premier game, insane. One of the coolest softball games, craziest softball games. You guys are down here and out away. You might be a strike away from going home that night too.
Well, but you're speeding ahead. We had a 3-run lead going into the 7th, and we give up an in the park grand slam.
That's right.
To fall behind. We we were up by 2, and then we give up an in the park grand slam on a ball that hits inside the foul. It's a fair ball with the bases loaded, goes down into the corner. Our left fielder is running towards it. Harley's going to get it. It hits the post and kicks halfway to center field. And I'm sitting on the bucket. I'm thinking we're going to win this thing. That's the top of the 7th when that happens. Like, you got to wrap your head around the fact that we took a 2-run lead into the top of the 7th, and when the top half of the 7th is over, we're down 2 on a ball that hit the corner post and ran to center field. And so you really want to start thinking about how this is it. We just got beat. Like that. I mean, it's Iowa Premier on the other side. They're really talented. They're really good. And it was nuts to me because we had some kids go up and have the type of at-bats that you would expect some of them to have. And then we had some kids go up and have some at-bats that I wouldn't have expected them to have. Because we got a couple kids. We just said, hey, we're going to be really not be overly aggressive early. We're chasing 2 runs. We've got the ability to leave the yard on them like that. That's always there where we were at in the order. And that's what I was afraid of, is we would try to leave the yard, hit a 2-run home run with nobody on base kind of thing. And I asked a couple of them, like, hey, let's just be patient. We're going to take till we get a strike. Let's see if we can't generate some base runners. And that's exactly what happened. And I subbed a kid off the bench who's a power hitter for me and asked her to bunt. And she's one of the best bunters we have on our team, Maddie Hartley, who wasn't in the lineup. That was a great testament to be ready when your opportunity is called and have the right frame of mind, because that's exactly what she was, a senior, not starting in that game. Like, she could have ended her career sitting on the bench, not in the lineup. But we weren't treating that game like it was going to be the end. We were treating that game like this is a step to the next game. So, not writing her name in the lineup in that game was scary for me a little bit, because when I'd say I have pictures of her when she was 7 years old with me at our Bomber banquet, that's how long she'd been a Bomber. So those things are always in the back of your head. I put her in. She moved the runners up, and they didn't get her out at first base. They bobbled it. And she laid the bunt down. They bobbled it. Something happened. She's safe at first base. We have bases loaded, no outs. And then it's when I was worried about the next group of hitters were our younger power hitters, and they try to leave the yard too much. And that's what gets us in trouble with teams like the Wisconsin Lightning that have a nasty pitcher, and we're trying to hit everything out of the park. And they went up and hit 2 sac flies, like just the other way. Sac fly to right center. Both of them are right-handed hitters. I asked them to have that part in their game to continue to get better with that. And they went up and did what I would have not thought they were going to do. They'd hit into a ground in the fall. They'd hit into a ground ball. It hit a double plate, ground ball to third, step on third across the field, like done things like that, and they didn't. And we tied the game, and then we're running out of daylight and have to move field. So that was crazy.
Oh gosh, as a tournament operator in that moment, I was like, oh goodness, no. It's a field with no lights. It's a softball diamond. It's a great field, but it doesn't have lights. We're literally losing daylight. Like, oh, if this thing goes to extras, we got to move it. And now the momentum is, what was it, 8-8? I think at that point we're headed into IT. And we got to move.
Yeah, it was 8-8. What was wild is we had to wait 30 minutes for them to set the temporary fences and had no part of the game. Absolutely. But the guys at bullpen were so awesome that they put a temporary fence up that never mattered because of ball. I don't know if a ball got out of the infield in that last inning, but yeah, that was interesting because we had time. That was that's another example of like a crazy run to win a national championship. We had time to talk about, the great thing about that was we were the home team. And so we had time to talk about how we were going to defend them being in ITB. And we talked about, and we made a gamble. I just said, I'm going to bring my second baseman and stick him in their face. And we're going to try to throw the runner out at third base if they get it down. And that is not the normal tactic. Normally you get the ground ball, you throw it to first, the runner gets to first base and gets to third base. And then the percentages say they score somehow, those kind of things. And I think we had our 2 defenders, our third baseman and our second baseman, within like 10 feet of home plate, which says a lot about them. Probably would call me crazy for doing that, maybe saying I'm stupid that I would put those players in that risk, but I trusted them and they trusted me and they defended it, and their hitter didn't get the bunt down because I don't know if it's because they were so stressed seeing them up in their face that much. And we had Camry throwing, might have been throwing 78 that night. Like it looked like it was 78 because she was rearing back and throwing, and she was probably throwing more like 70, but it looked like 78 at night, and it was hard. And she was juiced up, and they didn't get it down. And I know how hard that is. That's not a derogatory thing to them, but we were very fortunate. They didn't get the bunt down. They get the first out. Then they couldn't really bunt the runner over, so they had to take their shot at driving the run in, and we get out of it. And then it's our turn, and I look up, and, hey, who's at second? Townsend Thomas. I was like, okay, we're good. We're good. Yeah. We're going to win this. That's exactly what I told myself. We're winning this right here, right now. We got the right people up. We're at the top of our order. Get probably our best bunter and Gidley up, and Townsend is second. And that's exactly what Gid did. She dropped the bunt down. Townsend gets the third. They walked and load the bases. And the funniest thing is the kid that drove the run in, Hardy Vestal. That's exactly probably you could have, if you looked at our lineup, you'd probably go to a bunch of different people to choose to get that done. But Harley is probably the one I would want up there because she's just like, you talk about somebody who's been a bomber for a long time and her history of her sisters and all these other things. And I remember walking over to her when she was on deck, and I said, they're walking Elsa and those guys to get to you, and the bases are going to be loaded. All I need you to do is hit it hard. I don't need you to hit a flat ball. I don't need you to hit a ground ball. I don't need you to hit anything. Just hit it hard. Townsend will do the rest. And she hit a bouncing ball up the middle. I always steal that from Tony. Tony says bouncing balls up the middle win championships. And she hit a bouncing ball up the middle. And when Townsend took off, they were not getting Townsend. If you see that video, like she's flying. And that was a game. That was a ball game. That was a game. But then you got to go to bed at night. You got to go to bed that night and come back, try to do it again.
Well, to me, and that was like, I'm just a fan, right, at that point. And it's cool. Like you've already mentioned so many different players who played a huge role, which again, to me, is the story of a national championship. But Krieger in that game, you are not joking. Like, I think she was throwing 80. It looked like it. But that, to me, then sparks this run that your pitching staff goes on, right? You got to play impeccable the next couple days. That's the last time you guys gave up a run.
Which we hadn't beat. We were 0-7. Remember I said we lost 10 games in the fall? And we lost 1 in the summer to them. So we were 0-7 versus Impact. Like, to the point that it was, like, I'm looking at my players going, you guys want to do something? Like, I would challenge their, like, from a guy, you say you challenge their manhood. Like, I was challenge their femalehood. I was like, this is not okay. I don't know if I've ever been beaten by anybody 7 times, right? Like, one season. Like, we're not doing this.
Well, and I will say that Gold was playing really, really well. Like,
really well.
Really well for the tournament, too.
They were, to me, they were the team that and this is not a statement towards anybody else, but they were the team that I feared the most because, one, our history with this particular team I had versus them, they were very old. Like, when I say their team was almost all seniors, my team's almost all not seniors. And so it was almost like the varsity beating up on the JV kind of thing. And that's what it felt like all year. Like us, we felt like we were a JV team trying to beat them. Like we just couldn't figure out how to do it. Like our kids just did not do it. And so when we had to show back up that morning and figure out, hey, we've got to beat them twice. And I would be lying if I did not say I was already those things that creep into your mind as a coach are like, I'm just happy we got this far. Like, this is cool. Like, whatever happens today, cool. Right? I wasn't giving up in that line. I'm just saying, like, to me, it was more like we played in the national championship 2 of the last 3 years up to this point. We're in the final 3. We're going to finish no worse than 3rd. And based on what happened to us last year, we were a good softball team last year. We just lost Cambry right before Alliance, and we ended up getting 9th. And so if we'd had our arm, we'd probably contend to be really close last year too. But so I was just really happy about being where we were, but I also was like, if we do this right, if we win game 1, the pressure falls on them, and who knows? And that was how we approached it. And we gambled because we decided not to throw Cambry. And that would have been the smart play would have been say, hey, let's come back with Cam. She's a senior. Let's try to win game 1 and we'll take our chances at game 2. But we pitched a player who had not had a great summer in Haley Nutter. She just struggled to be what she was capable of being. She just didn't play well. Like, we couldn't keep her in games. Like, it was crazy. It's just, and her standards super high. And got into a scenario where it was more her being too hard on herself and not allowing herself to be successful. But we were like, hey, if we're going to, and I remember telling Nate on the plane we were all coming out, I said, if we have a chance to win a national championship, Haley Nutter's going to play a huge role. And she's going to have to. And we just gambled that she throws a 7-inning shutout in that game against them. And that's who we're like, whoa. And they were like, hey, well, Cam gets game 2. We really got a shot now. And she throws a 7-inning shutout. And then that's how we got to the finals. So it was just crazy. And Haley Nutter, like another name, like just like there's so many pieces to us being successful. And she was a huge role. And we came back that night in game 1 and said, here's the ball again. She goes, throws another 7-inning shutout. That was crazy.
So now we enter, and this first time we did it this year, we played game 1 of the 3-game series that night. So now you've double dipped, Impact Gold. You're headed to the national championship. You got game 1. What with your staff? This is probably a chance to talk about your pitching coach as well. Yeah. What a conversation of who you start in game 1 of a 3-game championship series.
Well, what's crazy is Kat tells me what we're doing, just so we're clear. She didn't ask me. No, like we talk about it, but like it's Kat Osterman. Like that's how I approach it, right? Like, so if she said we were starting our third baseman, I'd be like, all right, we're starting a third baseman. Like it's funny. Like we didn't talk about it before we got to the ballpark. We honestly did not talk like by text. She had JC and she was in a different car and we had went home and we'd eaten which I love playing game 1 at that night, just so we know. That was a big question mark about doing that versus playing all 3 in one day. I actually loved that. But we didn't talk about it. And we got to the ballpark, and I remember I was sitting on my stool out there on the outside of the fence watching the 16U game, and she walked up because she always comes a little fashionably late. And she said, I think I'm going to roll Nutter back out. And we have plenty of really talented arms. And that's another thing of like our pitching staff was so supportive of each other. Usually that's not an easy thing. Like they all want the ball. They're all a little bit mad they're not getting the ball. Especially game 1 in the national championship. We have someone who's absolutely fresh. It just says a lot about their character and them understanding, hey, we're probably going to go ahead and ride a hot hand here. And everybody was on board. And she said, hey, I'm going to roll Nutty back out there and see what we get out of her. And I was like, let's go, and we know what we got out of her was filth for 7 more innings. And it was tough. I mean, she didn't have a lot of innings on her arm either for the whole summer because we couldn't keep her in games, to be honest with you. So she was really fresh, and when she's good, she's as good as there is. And that's why she's going to play at Kentucky, and Kentucky's getting a good one. But we just ran her out, and then the offense did the work. And that was big. We got a couple home runs, which was, it helped too. We got to face the arm that we faced in Colorado, and we went back and watched a bunch of film. And I'd be messing up if I didn't say this. Like our 16U team lost a really tough ball game in the third place game to get to the national championship. Our 16U was a game away from getting to the national championship, but our 16U coaches were still there. Dale Siri and Rodney Williams and Chuck Peters and Brooke Vestal. Those guys were all there. So they helped us prepare for that game that night. We went and really kind of watched. We were watching a bunch of film and making some thoughts about how we were going to approach that. So traditionally, I wouldn't have them in my dugout. Well, they had gotten knocked out. So I was very fortunate. They were in our dugout, prepping our hitters, helping prep them with the game plan that we came up with. Our 16U team, we had to combat the whole Corona Angels, CA all day, loud. They have 48 players on their team. Basically, it feels like they have 48 because they're loud. But our 16U team put their jerseys on with their shorts and went in there and became cheerleaders. And they were they did the same thing tonight, the night before, I'm losing track. The night we played at Iowa Premier, they were in our dugout and ran onto the field with us. And so, yeah, we just had everything just kind of lined up for us. And so it helped us that we had seen that picture before. And we have felt like we could have some success on her. And our kids went out and executed a pretty good game plan. So it was good.
So you had a couple more players that we haven't even referenced yet that stepped up too, which again just goes like, when I'm looking back again as kind of a fan and watching the story, like players got their moments and they stepped up. And I think that speaks a lot to what you guys do. Can you even talk like, Elsa Morrison, and why am I drawing a blank on your third baseman, but she hits the home run.
Izzy Cruz. Yeah. Izzy Cruz. Yeah. Izzy, there may not have been anybody. So Izzy Cruz is she lives in New Braunfels where I live. She is a lifelong bomber. Like when I say from the time she was 6, 7 years old, she was a bomber. And so we've been watching Izzy come up through the ranks. We've always knew Izzy was going to be a talented player. She tore ACL the year that our 14U team won the Alliance in California. So she wasn't part of that team. She was on that team, but she didn't get to play. And so we just knew she was talented. We've always felt like Izzy is a good defender at third base, but the speed players can cause some challenges. And we were worried. I was worried about how Izzy would play at third base. Had full faith in her, but that was the part of the field that I was like, because if you can keep Marty and those guys off base, you have a chance to beat them. You let them get on and let them start doing what they do with their speed, that can be a problem. And she played out of her mind that night defensively in game one. She really kind of set the tone. And then she hit the 2-run bomb in the second inning, I think, is when she hit the home run. And we took the lead and we never gave up. We were never behind again. Like we were never behind again going all the way back to the 2 games from Impact. But in that series, that was big, right? For us to strike first against them. And she did that and she played like she was incredible. And then Elsa hit a bomb. And that's what Elsa does, is hit bombs. So like, I'm not discrediting what he does. And Izzy hits bombs too. Don't get me wrong. But Elsa, I thought that's how Elsa would play in that moment. Like that's more of a that's what he's supposed to do, right? And you're the Tennessee Gatorade Player of the Year. Like somebody misses old middle plate, you hit him out of the ballpark. And she played great, steady behind the plate for us, and was really critical towards helping our pitching staff. And Kat called a masterful game. Like it was like a clinic against them, and just gave those pitchers so much confidence. Kat is an incredible pitch caller, and I'm blessed. Like I don't take that for granted for a second. And I'd be messed up if I didn't say about our coaches. McCorkle as well as anybody. Mac, we call him our quality control coach, because his job is to make sure that the decisions that we all are agreeing upon, and we are a group. Like I don't make all the decisions. You'll see us come together at times, and it's a group concept. It's not a dictatorship. Like it's my way and I'm going to make the decisions. It's just not what's happening. But Mac is more that stabilizing force in the dugout for us with me. He really just allows me to bounce stuff off of. And he did a great job with that. And so and then Nate's my ride or die guy at first base. He keeps everything flowing. So I just have a great staff, and everything came together that night. And once we did that, we felt pretty good going into day 2. We didn't know how to act. We weren't vulnerable to getting knocked out. We weren't playing an elimination game finally.
I do like it. I appreciate you saying that, with the format change this year. Oh, now you wake up on Sunday and the max we have is 2 games, right? So even for Corona Angels on the other side, they're waking up saying we got to win 2 games today. Or you guys, what is that coaching wise and experiencing that? Even this year we played at Kokomo High School, it's a high school stadium like no other, literally.
It's a nice high school stadium in America. Like those kids are whoever kids that go to Kokomo High School, you need to know how blessed you are, because that stadium is crazy. It's crazy. I've been on the other side of that, right? Where you lose game 1, and it's pretty daunting to think you would have to play 3 games in one day. You just lost, and you got to beat this team twice. Like, I'm so glad we changed that format, because I'm sure that Marty and those guys after the first night, they tried to regroup and go back to the game plan. And for us, I know what we did. I know the work we put into prepping for the next day. Yeah. We were fortunate because we saw 3 or 4 arms in game 1, which this is all the tactical stuff you don't get to get in travel ball. Like, we got to see 3 or 4 arms in game 1, and we went back and started looking at every inning that we'd faced on those guys and charting what they had pitched and going back and taking a look at how we were going to approach that. We had a strategic game plan offensively going into game 2. That 12-0 thing wasn't a fluke. Our kids executed big time with what we had asked of them. So yeah, it's such a tactical, cool aspect of the Alliance AFCS is that it is a 2 out of 3, and there's a day between game 1 and game 2. That's just a really cool thing. If that doesn't mimic college softball and how these kids have to prepare and go sleep on it or not sleep because it's bugging you and all the different things that a collegiate player might have to experience, that is truly what I feel like is helping prep these kids for the next level. It's that format. And that was cool to be part of. I've been on the other side of it, and it's challenging because when you're looking up and you're thinking, man, we just lost and we got to figure out how to beat them twice. I'm glad that we changed that, to be honest with you.
It's cool. I'm sitting here thinking as a player too, right? A lot of the different things that you explained that your kids went through of, hey, in the fall, she does try to hit that ball out, like learning situational, understanding, like that's what's so cool, I think, about what we do at the Alliance, what you guys do in your own player development inside your organizations, watching these kids grow and get that experience. That's why I always think when I watch the Women's College World Series and now we've got 3 years of alumni, I'm like, that doesn't surprise me when Jocelyn Erickson does it or when Mia Scott does this. Like, we've watched them do that. And they're being
not at all
going through this gauntlet that we all put them through, you guys from an organization standpoint. So it's pretty fun to relive that through those lens too.
No, it's big. And when you start, like, I was trying to explain how, you watched that series with Jocelyn Erickson. She single-handedly beat us. Like, the rest of her team was really big. I think she had 7 RBIs between the 2 games. Like, she didn't do that during the regular season. We played Mike like 6 times that year, and we felt like we were handling her. She went and made adjustments. Mike and them made adjustments. Like, that's what these players have to learn to do to play at the next level. And we don't have that structure, right? It's tough in travel ball. Like, a lot of times, like, the other team's warming up on the side, and I'm standing there watching, is she upspin or downspin? That's the only thing I can try to tell. Is she up or down, right? Like or is she east-west? But normally we're just trying to make that quick, distinction of what they're doing and then try to, on the fly, make in-game adjustments. And it's hard. It's really hard. And the structure of the Alliance is, from a preparatory standpoint, I know what it's done for our players. Like, I'm watching our players succeed in college. I'm watching them step into day 1 and be, all SEC or Big 12 freshman of the year or whatever that. Like, they're ready. They're much more ready. And that's not us beating our chest. I'm saying, like, the environment we're actually throwing our kids into, we're throwing them in this crucible and saying, you're going to come out the other side and you're going to be tough. And we talk about armor a lot. And we talk about how we're building armor for the tough battles ahead. And, it's just really cool. It's really cool.
Well, now I'm going to flip gears on you. So now you are the defending national champion. We just launched the 2025 season. So now you got to, talking about armor, you got a new target on your back.
Yeah.
So what are you already thinking about? Like, what are some of those, like, pre-tournament conversations, team meetings? Does it change? And if it does, what does that look like?
Well, we never been in this spot before. So, like, we don't have there's not a game plan. I feel like I'm more inclined to just let that championship be what it was, and we press the reset button and we go try to run it back. Like, that's it. Like, we're starting at ground zero like everyone else, which we are. That's a true statement. I think sometimes you can feel like you're in a different place than that, I'm sure. But we really, like, the first week or 2 after the tournament, there was a lot of euphoria and, all that stuff that goes with winning a championship and all that. now we're talking about what day midweek practices are on, and who's on the roster, and what visits they're taking. Like, we're beyond that championship. Like, it's cool. It's really, really historical. I was talking to a college coach the other day, and we were just talking about, they were asking me almost the same thing. Like, what's it going to be like this next year? And I was like, I think we're just going to put it in our back of our head and leave it there. And she's like, well, you do realize in the history of the sport, you're going to be a national champion forever. There's very few people that get to say that they're a national champion. That lasts forever. And that is true. And so I'm going to probably try to celebrate that part of it, but also at the same time realize that this is a brand new thing we're on, and we're going to start with our 0-0 record, and we've got to try to figure out how to do it again. We're super blessed. Our 14U team won the national championship also. And so in our 16U got third. So like, we have some really talented players in our program, in our academy, in Bombers period. But I think those kids now, it's going to be, how do we temper them? Because they're all hungry to, like, the 14U kids, like, how do we take those young kids and slow down? That championship's gone. We got to try to start at 0-0 again. And these 16U ones that are moving up to our team, they're like, well, I want that too. Like, so we have all that going on. I'll be interested to see how our older players, because like I said, we were so young. We only started 3 seniors last year, which is really cool. I'll be interested to see how they handle it. Are they motivated the same way, or are they satisfied? Like, that's going to be the interesting piece to see as a coach.
Well, what another great learning opportunity, right? For Annabella and Brooklyn and Elsa, right? Now they have to defend the national champion. That same thing, right? You can, at college, the same thing's going to happen, whether it's at the conference level or national.
No doubt.
It's and don't worry, I wasn't going to let you leave here without acknowledging that Christy Malpass has now won 2 national championships.
She has. She reminds me. She reminds me.
I'm sure.
Yeah, she reminds me. She says, I got one more. She said, I got one more.
That 3-game series, a rematch of the Texas Bombers and the Corona Angels at the 14 under. And I was blessed again to have a front row seat to that. And July 2, Scott, so the Bombers get run ruled in game 1, come back and win game 2. I have championship shirts. I haven't really told this story, but I've got championship shirts. I'm standing there ready to go on the field and honestly deliver them to the Corona Angels. You guys are down 3 runs with 2 outs, I'm pretty sure, and come back and win this thing. It was one of the craziest games. But what was that for your program director watching your 14s? What was that moment like?
Yeah, I was in my bar. You've been to my bar. I had it on the big screen. I had lots of people over and we were watching it. And when they scored 5 in the top of the 7th, there was some craziness going on there. And we were pretty fired up. What's nuts is, and I, as a program director, I think, well, one, I'm super proud of Christy. Like, she's an incredible softball coach. I forced her to have to almost start with a new team every year. And that's a tough thing to do as a coach. That's really challenging. With me, my 25s are back and my 26s are back, and we're integrating some kids. And so you're building. But that 14U group, it's really challenging for us not to try to get those freshmen out of there, up and get them in the fight and all that. So I ask a lot of her every year. So for her to do that and just come back with a brand new team and do it again, like, that just says a lot about her as a coach. But what I'm really proud of is we make our 14U kids, they live and breathe the same air as our 18U kids. That they are in that environment all the time. If you're ever at a tournament, you see our 18U coaches in our 14U dugout, our 14U coaches in our 18U dugout. We run the same signals. We run the same first and thirds. We run the same everything. And so they're built for that in a lot of ways. We like to say, a lot of people like to talk about how they're built, but they truly are built for, hey, we're down 5. Like, let's score. Let's go figure out a way to score, right? And it's easier said than done. Like, a lot of people can say it. It's very difficult to do. And so it's just cool. Our academy is truly starting to kind of shape up into what we felt like it could be with the right people and the places we asked them to be. And we're fortunate, man. We were blessed with just great coaches and great players and great parents. And so it's really cool.
Well, this is fun. I appreciate you just kind of reliving. Like I said, it's fun. Obviously, I'm there to help run the event, but at the end of the day, I'm a huge softball fan, and I appreciate telling those stories. I guess just kind of in parting, just put a bow on it. Wrap it up of like before you have to move on to 2025 season.
Yeah.
Well, on thoughts of just not only your 18 under, but the Bombers organization as a whole.
Yeah, well, first I want to just remind me to congratulate Marty and those guys. Like they played in the national championship in the 18s and the 14s also. Like so it's hard. I've been there. I know how hard it is just to get to that game. And for them to get into both games just like we did, you could flip a coin. We ran that back. We did that same series again. Who knows if it turns out that way? More than likely, it probably doesn't. I mean, they were so talented on both the 18s and the 14s. So big. And by the way, he and I always mess about how he says I owe him a bottle of I always tell him it's Cavassier just to get him riled up, and he has no, it's Hennessy.
Right?
I sent him. I figured he might want it, so I sent him a bottle of Hennessy last week. So he got his bottle of Hennessy. So you are my witness that he can no longer say I didn't send him Hennessy. But more than anything else, it was just a really cool relationship between me and him. I put a note in there to thank him for the way that he went about his business and how they battled us and we battled them, and we were just fortunate. So it was really cool to wrap it up that way. And he and I both said, well, let's run it back, and we'll try to see each other again at the end again. So, but yeah, I'm just proud of softball. Like I'm just proud to be part of what we're doing in the sport. I think there's a lot of really good people, and you're in that group that are doing what's right by the sport. And I think there's a lot that can get better, and we'll just keep pushing that. But it was a fun summer, I can tell you that. And I'm looking forward. I'm ready to start playing tomorrow, like next week. I think we start on the 6th. So I can't wait for the 6th to hurry up and get here for sure.
It is here. The 2025 season is here. But Scott, I appreciate you. That was fun for me, and I think it'll be fun too for people to relive through your eyes and what that run was like. To be national champions, and now nobody can ever take that title away from you. You are a 18 under national champions, and it was very well deserved by
thank you.
Your program, by your coaches, by your kids. So thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
Hey guys, we hope you're enjoying the Car Ride Home podcast. Hopefully we're filling the air and making your car ride home a little bit more enjoyable. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, and leave us a review. If you have any special guest or requests that you'd like to hear, or have us bring a guest or a story onto the podcast, shoot us an email, info@thealliancefastpitch.com. We'd love to hear from you.